This is podcast 240 with Mary Walter. Mary, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming on the show today. So, give me a little bit of your background. So, where were you born, and tell me a little bit about your past aspirations as a youngster.
Wow. Well, I'm a Jersey girl, born and raised.
Yep.
Still living in the wonderful state of New Jersey. Waiting until I make enough money so I can move out.
Yep.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I went to Villanova. I was a communications major at Villanova. I thought I would work in like a corporation in a communications department, doing leadership training, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that at school. We did a lot of training seminars on leadership and communication skills and things like that. So
Yeah.
I thought that's what I would go into. And when I got out of college, I didn't really graduate into a great economy.
Mm.
So I wound up bopping around doing a bunch of different things. I worked in a bunch of different corporations in various aspects of it. I wound up in doing not programming, but working on computer type projects at AT&T, believe it or not, as a consultant. I wound up consulting. And then I didn't have a job, and I was hanging out, and I was on the beach waiting for my next consulting gig.
Yeah.
And a local radio station in New Jersey was having auditions to host one of their evening talk shows.
Mm.
And I can do that, because I was listening to these women audition one night, and I'm like, I can do that. These women are terrible. I could do that. And I kept saying it to my husband. I was just married at the time, and my husband was in his residency in Philadelphia, and I was in New Jersey working. And he said, I can't take it anymore. Call. Long story short, I called. They called me back. They're like, you want to audition and you want to come in? I'm like, yeah. I went in, and they're like, you like doing this? I said, yeah. They're like, you want to do it tomorrow? I said, yeah. And that's it. It's changed my life totally. And now I'm in radio, the high-paying career of radio. Forever.
I have a question. What is your radio show actually called? Your radio show itself?
Okay, well, I'm no longer full-time on air.
Yeah.
I left WMAL last year.
Yep.
And so I left there. So now I fill in for Brian Kilmeade. I fill in on Sirius Patriot Channel. I fill in for Guy Benson on Fox News Radio. I fill in for Todd Starnes and Rob Carson, and also on WPHT in Philly. Those are my main fill-in jobs. That's mainly what I do. I do have a podcast.
Yes.
On Thursdays called Mary Walter Radio. You just search on that. It's Thursday evenings at 7:15 p.m. So, and I will be launching another podcast in September as well. That's basically where I am right now. And I do a lot of TV hits for Newsmax TV.
Yeah, I love Newsmax. Now, let me ask you the question. Why do you think the corporate media, not Newsmax, but all the other media networks, have become so, can I use the term? I'm just going to say, what the heck, woke these days? Some of them. A fair amount of them, but Newsmax is great. But why is it the other ones have become so woke and just so just dismal?
Yeah. That's a great question, because I don't understand it myself, and I ask that all the time. So it's fantastic, because I ask that question. That's a good question. I don't understand their thinking, because if you look at any country that goes down the socialist path, which eventually becomes authoritarian, who do they take out? Teachers and the media, right?
Yeah.
So I just think it's a lack of historical knowledge, and I think it's also hubris in the sense of, well, that's not going to be us. We're not going to go down that road. America's not going to go down that road. Yeah. I don't know of any country that thought that, this is great, that people are going to have all the power, that doesn't go down an authoritarian road. So to me, it's a lack of history and, I guess, disregard for it, and a bit of hubris and ignorance.
Yeah. Now, being in New Jersey, do you feel that state is extremely woke? Because I feel like, I hope New Jersey can go red one day. What do you think of that process?
Well, New Jersey, I'm old enough to remember when New Jersey was red.
Yeah.
Governor Christine Todd Whitman was our last governor that was really the end of the Republican Party in New Jersey. And it's because, I watched it happen. New Jersey, New Yorkers were living in on their way to socialism, and they were on their way to being woke. And New Yorkers started leaving New York, and they came to New Jersey, and they do what happens. You see it happen all over the country. They vote then for the same thing that they just left. You know, they come to New Jersey and they vote blue. I'm watching it happen again. To a much greater extent, where these people, I live at the Jersey Shore, especially after Hurricane Sandy, these people started coming here, but after COVID, their beaches were closed. And so they all came to New Jersey, and we live in this little Jersey town, and they only would go to like the bigger towns. They found, you know, the Jersey Shore that they didn't really know about before, and they're coming here in droves, and they're not leaving, and they're buying, and they're paying inflated prices for houses, and then they hang their Biden flag. I'm like, oh, you don't know where you moved, do you?
Exactly.
So you know, it's just, they're like locusts.
Mm.
That's what happens. And you see it happening to Montana, with California moving out into Montana. It's happening there. You know, it's happening. And look at what's happening to Texas. Californians fleeing to Texas, and now there's a Turn Texas Blue movement.
Yeah.
They're just, it's a religion to them, and you can't convince someone that their religion is wrong.
Mm. Do you know a Boston guy named, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's from Massachusetts. I'm in Boston, so do you know a guy named Howie Carr?
Of course.
Of course. Yes. He's a wonderful journalist. I don't know if have you ever met him before in person at all?
I have been at talkers where he has spoken, but I have not met him. I've met his sister, who is an agent, Kathy. I've met her.
Yeah.
Very nice woman. But
Yep.
I've never, you know, I've been at places where he's spoken, and we're like, hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. But, you know, nothing in depth.
Yep. So why is that the media? Why does the media doesn't understand that President Trump, the guy, how he really is? Because I met him once too, and the media makes him out to be this monster. But in reality, he's not like that at all. He's actually the opposite of that. He's very nice and caring, you know. And as my person, I see through what the media is trying to portray him as. So why do you think? What is it about him you think that they hate? Is it because of the fact that he calls them out? I mean, you probably met him several times. Do you see what I see in him? Because I see a guy that's very nice and just a guy that loves people.
So are we speaking about Trump now,
yes.
or Howie Carr?
No, I'm sorry. I'm President Trump.
Trump. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I did get to meet Trump. I was very blessed with the opportunity when I was working in Washington, and actually met him in the Oval Office, and probably got to spend about 90 minutes with him.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
And he brought some radio hosts from around the country in, and sat down and talked to us. And you know, growing up in New Jersey, I get his personality. It's not offensive to me. I understand it. So, and I understand why he is what it is. Yes. So I found him as very, very impressed with the man that I met.
Yes.
And he was speaking to us. Some things were confidential, some things, you know, but he wanted to know what our listeners thought about the job he was doing. He wanted to know what the people who put him in office thought.
Yeah.
And I found that was so, that was very impressive to me. He said, I don't care about what people in Washington, D.C., he goes, I know what they think of me. They all hate me. I want to know what your listeners think about me. The people who put me in office, I want to know what they think about the job I'm doing.
Yes.
And then asked us about a bunch of different policies and things like that. That was so impressive to me. The left, it fears him. Now, you got to separate the left in power, and not even just the left. It's kind of like the party, and I view it as the party is one big thing, because they want one party rule. But then I look at like Mitch McConnell and others who also hated Trump, who would be part of the party if Trump were president. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think it's because Washington, D.C. is beyond corrupt. And having lived there, I hated it. It's a company town. Everyone's on the same team, which is, the team is power and money for me.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you're blue or red or green or whatever it happens to be, whatever your team colors are, you're really all playing for the same prize. So that's why they hated Trump, because Trump called that out.
Yeah.
And so that's why you see Mitch McConnell against Trump. That's why you see other, the Liz Cheneys, the Adam Kinzingers, the others who hated Trump because, look at how rich Liz Cheney got in just, how many years was she in Congress, right? 6 years, said, look at how rich he got in that 6 years. Look at how rich the Bidens have gotten. Look at how rich Hunter Biden's gotten. So it's about power and money, and he stood in the way. And when someone stands in the way of that, people, I think, act very badly.
What do you think they're going to do when he runs again? Because I can tell you right now, from what I can tell, Dick Morris says he's going to run again. How do you think he's going to treat him this time, you think, when he runs? Because Dick Morris has hinted at it, that he is going to run again.
Oh, I definitely think he's running again. And I will tell you, I would prefer to see like a Ron DeSantis run and Trump be the power behind the throne. I think Trump could have more power that way because there is something about him. The left has poisoned their base, the useful idiots of their party.
Yeah.
To the point where they can't. Anything Trump does is wrong. It's and I don't say this to be funny, but I truly believe that there's something like there's something wrong with them. Like they've gotten to the point where their brains are broken when it comes to Trump. So he could hand them $1 million and they would say he's a horrible person.
Hey.
So I think the media is going to treat him exactly the same. Look what they're doing now with the Mar-a-Lago raids. It's the same playbook. The FBI, that raid was under the guise of the National Archives, in my humble opinion, under the guise of the National Archives. They're turning all that information over to the FBI because the FBI knew they couldn't get it. So they're going to turn it all over to the FBI. The FBI is already going through it, I'm sure, with a fine-tooth comb to try to find some kind of crime that they can charge him with.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. And you know it's the same playbook as Russia because they're leaking the slow little leaks from the FBI to Washington Post and New York Times. You know, we heard he took, he had nuclear codes. They found nuclear codes. Well, that wasn't true. But there are some people who will believe that from now to the end of time. And that's all that they want to do is just poison the well. And that's what they're going to do.
So on your podcast, do you do phone calls on your actual podcast or just on the radio you take phone calls?
No, yeah. I don't. I'm not. The podcast is relatively new. I'm not vested enough in it at this point to take phone calls from listeners, to set up a phone number and all that other stuff and invest in the equipment and do all that just yet. Shockingly, we don't get a lot of views on YouTube on the night of the podcast. We get more as time goes on. So that's one thing. But on Getter, I'll have 500 people watching it in live at night. So, and I can put the comments, any comments that people leave on YouTube can go onto the screen during the podcast. So hopefully Sunday when I get as popular as you and I get as many viewers as your podcast does, maybe I will go that route.
Now, let me ask you a question real quick. Are you on Rumble yet?
I'm not on Rumble, and I'll tell you why I'm not on Rumble.
Yeah.
Rumble is
it's good.
It's good. It's great, but it's chock full of political videos and political podcasts. So to stand out on Rumble, you either have to have a huge name or be totally different and slowly build your following. So for now, I'm not on Rumble.
Has YouTube censored you at all yet? Because I'll tell you one thing, because of who I am, YouTube censored me twice. At least twice I've been censored.
For what though?
For speaking my mind about the election.
Oh, okay. So no, I have not been censored in that way. They've come after me for some guy claimed that part of that he owned part of my the content on my podcast and gave the time, and it was like 1:52, and I watched the whole thing, and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't even know who this person is. What are you talking about? So that was about it. So no, I have not been censored. I do not have the badge of honor that you have.
Now, here's a funny question. When you met Trump, did Trump say, frankly, where is Mary? Walter, where is Mary? Stand up, Mary. Stand up, Mary, please. Stand up, Mary. Did he say that or no when he was talking to you?
No, but since it was radio host, it was Sebastian Gorka, David Webb, me, John Fredericks.
John's great. Yep.
There were some guys from Georgia. There was Don Giordano from Philly. Yeah. I was the only woman.
Yeah.
So I did get treated very nice because there weren't enough seats. I was sitting on one of the yellow couches in the Oval Office and sitting next to Gorka, and there weren't enough seats. So Trump looks at me, he goes, Mary, you know what? Pull up a chair. And he pulls a chair up right next to him, and I sat right next to him. So I got to be right next to him in the photos because I was the only woman. So it was very nice.
Now, when you say to the argument, that a Biden supporter sees what the media is trying to say about him, because as a Biden person, I see how wonderful he is, quote unquote. And how come the sighted people that have vision can't see that?
That's very excellent. I think sometimes when you lose one sense, you gain another.
Yeah.
So you gained common sense when you lost your sense of sight.
I you know what? I appreciate you saying that. Now, are you on Truth Social at all, or no? Have you familiar with that site at all, Truth Social?
Oh yeah, I am on Truth Social. Yeah.
So I have a question for you, real quick, on that app. Do you think they'll make it blind friendly accessible for blind people to use?
I am woefully ignorant in that area.
Yeah.
Which I am willing to admit, because I do know that people who are blind consume radio, because obviously it's an oral, AURAL medium, as opposed to a visual medium. And we would always have a lot of regular participants in any radio show I've ever done by people who are blind.
Yeah.
And I did find that, because I think people who listen to radio who are sighted are lazy in some sense with their listening.
Yeah.
Whereas for you, there's nothing else to distract you from that.
Yeah.
So you listen more intently, and I think you hear things maybe in a different way. You're more likely to hear nuances in the way something is said versus someone who is sighted, which is why and so I can't answer your question. I don't know about if they'll do that on Truth Social, and it's a great question to ask, and I'll come back to that. But one quick thing, I always tell people when there are debates, I tell people to watch the debate, part of the debate, but then listen only to part of the debate. And you will come away with people who only listen will come away with a different perspective than people who watch a debate.
Yes.
So that's that. But when you say make it accessible, is Getter accessible to people who are sight impaired?
On my device, I've tried it before, and when I try to do the app, because my Braille specified, so no, not on that. No, well, at least on my device, it's not.
So what would it? Because I know Jason Miller. So what would it need to do on Getter to work for you?
I would need to make the navigation easy. So like you could be like home, create an account, and then I need to go through like the home timeline, direct messages. I would need it to, in order for me to be able to do it, I would need, like same with the truth, I would need to be able to make it so you can like just scrolling through the home page and make it so it's not slow scrolling. Make it more so you can scroll faster. That's like scrolling time on certain apps is very slow, and certain apps had to scroll down sometimes. They just come somewhat slow on occasion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the next time I spoke with Jason last week, I got to interview him.
Yeah.
And so the next, maybe that's something that I'll bring up to him the next time I speak with him. That's interesting. I never thought of it.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very, very excellent. Again, I'm learning here because you don't think about that. It's just not something a sighted person would think of. Wow.
Yeah. It's great. Now, real quick too. One of my favorite things too about President Trump is when he debates. I love, my favorite line that Trump uses a lot is when he says, wrong, totally wrong, totally wrong. I did not. That is totally false. Like, I love when he embarrasses, can I use a term? I love when he embarrasses the embarrassable people. Do you like that too, to an extent?
Well, of course. Again, that's just his
style.
Queens, that's his style.
Yeah.
That's just the way he speaks. Listen, do I wish that if he is elected, he gets off of social media? Yes, I would love for him to get off. I understand that he had to circumvent the media, so he used Twitter. I get it. He could have been more prudent and judicial in the way in which he used it. Yeah. I wish, even my aunt was like, but he's so rude. And I was like,
my aunt said too.
And I said, well, I understand that, but he's not coming over for dinner. Yeah. So why do you care?
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. Remember the difference between Churchill and Chamberlain, right? Yeah. Churchill was a drunk. He was a bore. He was people hated him. Yes. He was the way he spoke and everything else. And Chamberlain was really nice. And look what happened. after the war, everybody loved Churchill. Before the war, they all hated him.
Did you work at Newsmax with the RNC speech when he came out and spoke in 2016 when he first ran? Were you working at Newsmax at that time when he was 2016 first running for office?
No, I worked at Newsmax back in 2014, 15, and then again, Sean Spicer brought me in 2019, I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll never forget the RNC speech when he first spoke. Do you remember this line? You might have watched it at the time when he said the words, I remember when he says, I am the law and order candidate. And he also said, we don't win anymore. We're going to start winning again.
Yes, of course. I remember.
Of course. Yes. That was a lovely speech. Well, thanks for coming on Mary the Show, Mary, today, and I hope we can keep in touch. I appreciate you coming on the show today, and I hope we can keep in touch.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day. You too. We'll keep in touch. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
Thank you so much, Mary. Do a close up.
Yeah.
Thank you guys again for that interview with Mary Walter. Have a great interview with Mary today. It was a blast. And next week, John DePietro, next Wednesday at 9:30. So thank you guys.